Hello, dear YouTube viewers. I hope you're doing well. Okay, let's start our video. My name is Claire, and for the last 12 years, I thought I had a good marriage. Not perfect, no relationship is, but solid. We had a home in a quiet, well-manicured suburb, 2 dogs, a shared love for Sunday breakfasts, and a routine that felt comforting. I worked part-time at the local library, balancing work and home, so I could be fully present for him. I knew all his favorite meals, what calmed him down after a bad day, and how to make him laugh when he was stressed. For the most part, I believed he did the same for me. People think betrayal comes like thunder, sudden, loud, and unmistakable. But the truth is, it starts so softly, you almost miss it. It creeps in silently, through little things. A distracted nod during a conversation, a phone that's always face down, a hug that lasts a second too short. At first, I didn't want to believe anything was wrong. I told myself he was tired from work, that maybe we'd fallen into a rut that all long-term couples go through. I even blamed myself. Maybe I wasn't interesting enough anymore. Maybe I was too predictable. But deep down, I could feel the shift. The way he stopped asking about my day. The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The coldness in our bed that had nothing to do with the temperature. Something was changing between us, and I was afraid to look too closely, because looking would mean admitting something was wrong. And if something was wrong, I'd have to decide what to do about it. So for months, I looked away. I smiled through the discomfort. I swallowed my doubt. I kept pretending that everything was fine, until the day I couldn't anymore. It started with the late nights. At first, it was once or twice a week. He claimed meetings were running long, or that clients wanted to grab dinner. But soon it became routine. He'd come home hours after dinner was cold, always with some excuse. Always tired, always distracted. I noticed how quickly he put his phone face down when I walked into the room. Notifications stopped lighting up the screen, and passwords changed without a word. He used to leave his phone charging in the kitchen. Now it never left his side. Then there was the sudden transformation. He started working out obsessively. Early morning runs, gym sessions, a new protein powder that made our kitchen smell like chemicals. I didn't mind the health kick, but it came with new clothes, tighter shirts, and a cologne I didn't recognize. I asked him about it casually. "Oh, just trying something new," he said, brushing me off like I was commenting on the weather. The real cracks began to show in the smallest moments. One night, I did laundry and found a faint lipstick stain on the inside of his collar. Just a smear of color. Easy to miss unless you were looking. The scent on his clothes wasn't mine, and I knew it. It was floral and sharp, not the warm vanilla perfume I wore every day for a decade. My stomach turned, but I still clung to the possibility of coincidence. Maybe a hug from a co-worker. Maybe a transfer from a borrowed jacket. When I finally confronted him, my voice shaking, he didn't get angry. He smirked. "You're being paranoid," he said. "You need to stop watching so many crime dramas." He made me feel ridiculous, insecure, delusional. And for a moment, I believed him. But something deep inside me wouldn't let it go. I stopped trying to silence my instincts. I paid closer attention, noticed how he smiled more at his phone than he did at me, how he smelled like he'd just showered walking in at midnight, how he started hiding receipts. I wanted to be wrong. I desperately wanted to be wrong. But the weight of the evidence kept building. And eventually, I couldn't lie to myself any longer. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I found it, small, silver, and delicate. An earring, nestled between the passenger seat and the center console of his car. Not mine. I hadn't worn earrings like that since my 20s, and certainly not ones with the tiny ruby, heart dangling from the center. My chest tightened as I stared at it resting in my palm, and for the first time, I didn't try to come up with a rational explanation. I knew. Deep down, I already knew. That Friday, he mentioned a business dinner. His tone was casual, practiced. He even kissed my cheek before leaving, like he always did, as if everything was normal. I waited 10 minutes before grabbing my keys and heading out. I didn't have a clear plan, just a gut instinct and a deep need to know. I followed at a distance, heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. He didn't go to a business district or hotel bar. Instead, he drove to a rooftop restaurant across town, The kind with candlelit tables, soft jazz, and an expensive view of the city skyline. From my parked car across the street, I had a clear view of him sitting at a table near the balcony. He was smiling, really smiling, leaning in close to a woman with long dark hair and red lipstick that matched the mark I'd found on his shirt weeks ago. She looked younger, maybe 10 years, polished, confident, familiar. I realized she worked at the same yoga studio where I took a few classes last summer. I had seen her around town. A wave of heat and nausea washed over me. But I didn't storm in. I didn't scream. I just watched for a moment longer, then drove home in silence, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Something inside me had snapped, not with rage, but with cold, clear certainty. When I got home that night, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or break things. I walked into our bedroom, took a deep breath, and opened his closet. The anger I expected never came. Instead, there was a strange, cold clarity. My hands moved with purpose. I pulled out his shirts, slacks, socks, boxers, all of it, folded neatly, placed carefully into his favorite travel suitcase, one of the ones I bought him for our anniversary trip to Spain. I packed his toiletries, his cologne, the cufflinks I gifted him for his promotion, the little things that told a story, our story. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my nightstand and pulled out every gift I had ever given him. The silver anniversary watch I had engraved, the handmade Valentine's Day card from our second year of marriage, the framed photo of us in Venice, the leather-bound photo album I made for our 10th anniversary, filled with memories, smiles, vacations, and love. All of it went into the suitcase, not with malice, but finality. I wasn't going to beg. I wasn't going to fight for someone who had already chosen to betray me. I was just done. I texted 2 of my closest friends, Sarah and Dana. I didn't explain everything, just asked them to be available later that week. I knew I'd need steady voices, even if I wasn't ready to talk yet. They could sense something had shifted, but they didn't pry. Their quiet support was all I needed in that moment. I had already heard whispers about the upcoming neighborhood barbecue. Every year, the biggest event of the summer. And this year, it was being hosted by none other than the woman I saw with him on the rooftop. How fitting. How poetic. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue with him. I wasn't going to sit down and have some dramatic confrontation. I was going to return what no longer belonged in my home. His belongings. His lies. His future. All of it. And I was going to deliver it in person, to the doorstep of his affair partner, in front of every neighbor, friend, and acquaintance who thought we were the perfect couple. The day of the barbecue arrived warm and bright, as if the universe itself had no idea what was about to unfold. I took my time getting ready, not out of vanity, but with intention. A soft cream blouse, tailored black pants, delicate earrings, and just enough makeup to look composed, but not theatrical. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a woman scorned. I saw a woman who had finally stopped waiting to be respected. I loaded the suitcase into the trunk, the wheels clicking lightly against the driveway. It was heavier than I remembered, weighted not just with clothes, but with years of loyalty, trust, and love. I drove with the windows down, letting the wind clear whatever nerves lingered. Their home was just a few streets over, a modern house with perfect landscaping and a smug kind of charm. Cars lined both sides of the street. Laughter drifted through the trees, along with the smell of grilled food and fresh-cut grass. It was a full house, our neighbors, mutual friends, even some people from his office. I recognized his boss chatting with someone near the patio. I parked, stepped out, and pulled the suitcase behind me. The wheels rolled smoothly over the sidewalk, whispering over the concrete, like a calm storm coming in. People turned as I entered the backyard. Some waved, others did double takes. I smiled, offered polite greetings, and walked through the crowd like I belonged. Because I did. And then I saw him. He was holding a drink, wearing the shirt I had folded just 2 nights ago. He froze when our eyes met, his smile slipping into confusion, then panic. Standing beside him was her, the woman from the rooftop, dressed casually, too confident, too comfortable. She followed his gaze and saw me approaching. Without a word, I stopped in front of them, the crowd quieting instinctively. I looked at her first, calm, direct, not cruel. then at him. I reached down, lifted the suitcase handle, and let it drop beside her feet with a soft thud. "I believe he belongs here now," I said clearly, my voice cutting through the stunned silence. The reaction was instant. Gasps. A few stifled murmurs. Someone dropped a fork. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised a hand, just once. A silent command. "Not today. Not anymore." Then I turned and walked away. Not in anger, not in shame, but in absolute, unshakable peace. Let them talk. Let them guess. I had said everything I needed to say, without raising my voice at all. By the time I reached home that day, my phone was already buzzing. Word of what had happened spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Some texts were short. "Did that really just happen?" Others were longer, filled with shock, admiration, or disbelief. A few of the women I'd known for years called me, voices hushed with a mix of concern and awe. "You were so calm," one of them said. "I would have lost it. You handled it like a queen." Of course, not everyone knew what to say. Some stayed silent. A few who had been friendlier with him than with me didn't reach out at all. And that was fine. I wasn't doing this for validation. I didn't need applause. I just wanted the truth laid bare. From what I heard later, the affair partner was completely blindsided, humiliated in front of their guests. She reportedly disappeared back inside the house before dessert. She didn't return to the party, and neither did he. My husband, or I suppose now, soon-to-be ex-husband, was furious. Not because he felt guilt, but because he'd lost control of the narrative. He called. He texted. He emailed. I didn't respond. I blocked him on every platform, changed the locks, and forwarded the separation papers to his office. His first message was full of excuses. The second, full of apologies. The third begged for forgiveness, told me he missed us, that I was overreacting. But I wasn't listening anymore. He even showed up at my friend Dana's house one evening, hoping she'd convince me to talk to him. She sent him away without letting him pass the porch. The community, surprisingly, stood with me. No dramatic public statements, just quiet support. Neighbors dropping off wine. Friends stopping me on walks to say they admired how I handled everything. Even his boss's wife sent me flowers. I hadn't just exposed his affair. I'd exposed his character. And by doing so without shouting or screaming, I left him with no room to paint himself as the victim. Dignity, it turns out, can be the sharpest form of justice. The public might have seen a composed, unshaken woman walking away from betrayal with grace, but behind closed doors, it was different. After the silence settled and the adrenaline faded, the grief crept in. I cried in the shower, cried into pillows late at night when the house felt too quiet, too empty. The betrayal wasn't just about him. It was about everything I'd invested in our life. The years, the love, the plans. There were moments when guilt clawed at me, even though I had nothing to be guilty for. I asked myself if I'd acted too coldly, too quickly, if I should have fought harder for us, if I had failed somehow too. That's the trap betrayal sets. It makes you question your own worth, your own instincts. I knew I couldn't carry all of it alone, so I found a therapist. Someone kind, soft-spoken, who didn't flinch when I said I felt both heartbroken and liberated. She helped me unpack the years I had ignored my needs to preserve a broken marriage. I also joined a support group for women who had been through the same. Listening to their stories made me feel less alone. We cried together. We laughed, too. There was something healing about hearing, "Me too." And little by little, I began to rebuild, not my marriage, but myself. I picked up books I hadn't had time to read. I started taking pottery classes. I went for long walks, just because I could. I started cooking for pleasure again, not just duty. I made new playlists. I dyed my hair a slightly warmer shade. Small things, maybe, but each one reminded me I was more than just a wife. I had always been more. I had just forgotten. And now I was remembering. The months that followed were filled with quiet transformation. I moved out of the house we once shared and into a cozy apartment overlooking a little park. It wasn't grand, but it was mine. I painted the walls the colors I liked, bought new sheets, lit candles that smelled like vanilla and cedarwood. My wardrobe shifted too. Not in a dramatic makeover kind of way, but piece by piece. I started choosing clothes that reflected who I was becoming, not who I had been trying to please. I began saying yes to things again. Coffee dates with friends I had drifted from during the marriage, weekend hikes, impromptu dinners, and even the occasional yoga class. Eventually, I dipped a toe into dating, not to replace anyone or fill a void, but just to remember what it felt like to laugh with someone new. Nothing serious, just steps forward. Somewhere along the way, I heard through mutual acquaintances that my ex had moved in with her. It didn't last long. A few months, maybe. I wasn't surprised. Their relationship had been built on lies and stolen time. It was never going to stand in the light. When I heard they had split, I felt nothing. No smug satisfaction, no flicker of revenge fulfilled. Just a strange, quiet peace. I didn't need his misery to validate my healing. I had stopped measuring my life against his long ago. I had my own mornings now, slow ones, with coffee in bed and sunlight streaming through windows that faced east. I had rediscovered the sound of my own thoughts, the rhythm of living on my own terms. And for the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anyone to come home. I was already home, with myself. ChatGPT said. The park was full of life that afternoon. Children running, couples strolling hand in hand, elderly folks feeding the birds on benches warmed by the sun. I walked slowly, letting the breeze move through my hair, the scent of cut grass and blooming flowers wrapping around me like a gentle reminder that life goes on. I watched a man brush a strand of hair behind a woman's ear and smiled, not with longing, but with peace. There was a time I believed I couldn't exist without him, that my world was anchored to his presence, his approval, his love. I had built a life around that idea, tending to it like a garden, even when the roots began to rot. But I was wrong. I hadn't just survived. I had started to truly live. In losing him, I found myself. And what I discovered was strength I didn't know I had, and a quiet joy that no longer depended on someone else's promises. I didn't need a grand apology or dramatic closure. I had written my own ending and my own beginning. Sometimes, healing doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in soft moments, in stillness, in choosing yourself again and again. I didn't need to scream, didn't need revenge. I just needed truth and the courage to act on it. And now, as I walked through that park with a steady heart and a full breath, I realized the final lesson he never meant to teach me. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is to say nothing. Just pack the truth in a suitcase and let the silence speak louder than revenge. Thanks for watching. For more videos, please subscribe. Our channel, American Latest Stories.